Luke Hodge has had the best read on Alastair Clarkson as this year has unfolded, which is not surprising given the long-term connection there, and he has become the reference point when you contemplate the idea of Clarkson coming into a fresh club. Hodgie, great to have you back.
Morning, Gerard. Well, I think everyone, I was starting to believe last week that, look, it was a nice, smooth process and he was going to make a decision this week. But as we sort of said the whole way along, is why would he rush? If he's got options, why would he rush in? Because one thing you know about Clarko is at the heat of the moment, he makes a quick decision and it might not be the right one. But when he's got time and space to sort of sit back and think and sum up all the options, he did that with GWS, even though we had the 4 interviews and found that wasn't the right pathway for him. The North Melbourne one looked like it was a making for both of them. And then because of his patience, he's now got another suitor, a possible suitor. And I'm sitting here saying, North Melbourne supporters, don't be stressed. Just because he's saying he'd like an interview, this is Clarko doing the due diligence, making sure that every stone has been turned to make sure that he makes a clear decision and a right decision for him and his family. So just because he's agreed to meet with Essendon and have a chat, that doesn't necessarily mean that he's more in favour to go there than North Melbourne. It's just making sure that he's a person who wants to make sure everything is done correctly. He knows all the information before he makes a pretty big decision moving forward.
So don't worry about the imposition of deadlines?
One thing, I wouldn't be telling a person like Parker, you need to make a decision now, because if he's getting forced and told to do something, I don't think it'll end your way. So if North have been patient with him this far, just because another suitor or another team has become available, don't force the issue and tell him to go and make a decision now, because I don't know 100% that would be the right way to go with a person like Clarko. I still think he's a good suitor. Like if you match up the two, if you look at North Melbourne, he's got 5 years of grace. He's got 5 years of bringing the people who he wants. In 3 years, if they're still developing, like North Melbourne have had a poor record for the last 4 or 5 years. They need a change. They need someone to come in, and Clarko's the person to come in to bring sponsors, to bring members, to bring hope and positivity going into the future. If you go to Essendon, all of a sudden that 5-year grace isn't there. Essendon are a team that want success. They're desperate for success, and if you look, they got rid of Knights because he wasn't on the job after 2 years. Obviously, whatever with Hurdy, but then Worsfold, they weren't happy with Worsfold because he wasn't getting there quick enough. Ben Rutten made the finals in his first year, and now in the second year they're trying to get rid of him. So this grace of Essendon, and don't forget the old Hawthorn-Essendon rivalry from the members. As soon as it gets into maybe second year or into his third year, where if they haven't made the finals, how about these Essendon supporters thinking, I'll go back to Hawthorn, we should have kept Rutten. There's still a bit to play out, even though as far as a media and entertainment point of view, looking from afar, it's made it a little bit spicy.
It has made it spicy indeed. So that's the downside to Essendon. What do you think the upside would be for Clarkson as he looks into that role?
Do you mean apart from sticking it to Hawthorn after getting rid of him?
No, I was wondering whether you would say that or not. But that is such an interesting part. So he talks about he's been on the Jeff Kennett World Tour this year. He speaks about that publicly. There is obviously residual hurt there. And I can imagine the idea of going to the bitter enemy, which is depicted across a double-page spread in today's Herald Sun, and going, well, you didn't want me, so here I am on the other side of it.
And can you imagine if Hawthorn are on the brink of finals next year and Essendon are in the same position and Clarko knocks Hawthorn out to take a final spot? Mind you, he's not going to come down to make a decision solely on that, but if it works out that he does coach Essendon, he'll be sitting there with a little smirk on his face going, it's my time to get you back after what you put me through. So it'll be interesting anyway. But as you sort of said, there's so many, you asked before about what are the highlights of Essendon. Well, Essendon do have some quality players on their list. And we saw that for when they made the finals in 2021. Yes, they had a harder draw this year. They didn't play the football we expected. There was a lot of comments on, were they defensively minded enough? I can tell you what, if Clarko gets into that side, they're going to be defensively minded. I can tell you that, because there's going to be vision upon vision upon vision all through pre-season. of doing the right things defensively and what not to do. And anytime you do that, whether it's a short-sighted game, it's a practice match, whether it's a pre-season game, he takes that so seriously that if anyone steps 1 foot the wrong way in a defensive system, you'll be shown about it. And if you keep doing it, you won't play. So that's the thing with it. There is so many upsides to the Essendon list if he does decide to go there. And this is all hypothetical. Ben Rutten at the moment still has the job at Essendon until we go further. But yeah, there's an upside if he does make that decision.
Yes, there is. So, do you think there's so Robbo and I were debating this last night. Do you think there's a difference between the legacy piece of winning the flag with North Melbourne? So this is not assuming anything. It's just the ultimate aim. So you go in to build a program to win a premiership. Is there a difference between the legacy premiership, the romance of rebuilding North Melbourne and taking them to a flag, the first one since the Pagan era, or mending a riven Essendon and winning the first flag since the Sheedy era, which if Carlton don't get there first would have historic echoes as well?
Oh, they're both. I think knowing Clarko for as long as what I have, the sentimental side of what John Kennedy did, go from Hawthorn to North Melbourne. He was a very much a big mentor for Clarko, and he built. We did a lot of things in pre-season because that's what John Kennedy taught Clarko in pre-season when he was in there. The grueling team first, the Kennedy Commandos, we were the Clarkson Commandos. There's a lot of sentimental value with that decision to go there. But on the flip of it, for a big coach like Clarko to go to a rival team and be the first person to coach a premiership team after Kevin Sheedy, that's pretty big. So whatever decision he makes, if he can get him push on to make success, you know it's going to be a huge story either way because there's so much attached to both teams.
Yeah. What about the Essendon scenario right now? Just the phantom zone of living in these couple of days. Zach Merritt gave us a little insight. So we get you to run the leadership portfolio, Luke. How would you deal with days like this?
Well, you know, it's like whenever things aren't going great, whenever you got no confidence or things are against it, you can have performances like what they've done over the last 2 weeks, especially on the weekend. That was as bad as what I've seen from Essendon, and I think a lot of their supporters and a lot of their players have admitted to that as well. But a lot of things do get magnified as well. The Hine thing on the bench with Rutten, when I saw that, I think it was about a 10 or 12 second, and we heard Hine talk yesterday and said it wasn't much. I'll get along with Ben really well. We joke around. There was no issue. I was just got tackled. But you sort of look into it. If you're on the bench for 12 seconds and someone's trying to give you help and trying to give you feedback and telling you what you did right, what you did wrong, you just go away at 50, have a chat. You make eye contact at least once. I think that was the damning thing. And I think a lot of people looked into that and going, oh, has he lost the players? From one act, you don't know that. But there's a few things as a leadership group. You'd be sitting down with a player who did that and saying, look, that's not on. You need to show their coach full respect. If any coach, whether it's the fitness coach, the trainer, the doctor, especially the head coach, if they're talking to you, look them in the eye. No matter how angry you are, at least for a second, then you can look away and do stuff. But at least give them the respect that you are listening to what they're saying.
Yeah, so if you'd been aware of that separately to all of this, because it is a couple of weeks ago, that is the sort of thing that you would address.
Yeah, without a doubt. And especially the hardest thing is when things aren't going well as a group. That's when everything's magnified. So you need to nip a lot of things in the butt early on and have these chats, have these discussions with your players, just so when people are looking for things, they don't find them. And there's no doubt next week, Fine's on the bench, he's going to be chatting with Ben as often as he can and making sure it all looks positive because for a second there, he was just in the game and his mind was somewhere else because he obviously had what's going on. But these are these little things that you try and touch on to make sure that everyone's looking after one another because everyone from external is looking in at the club going, oh, what can we look at? What can we pick at?
How do you find a sense of purpose, Luke, when the coach looks like he's out the door and the board has lost faith in him? And he's there, he addresses it in a self-deprecating manner. He wins the admiration of the players for doing that. But how do you stay together for a week in such curious circumstances?
tell you what, Jerry, it would be tough for what's going on. And I think we spoke a lot last year about clubs on how to handle saying goodbye to coaches and doing it the right way, wrong way. We sort of went, Hawthorn looked good at the start, and then that fell down, and then we thought, oh, hang on, Carlton went and bypassed Hawthorn on how not to get rid of the coach or how to part ways with the coach. But then this one, the inconsistencies of what we've heard from Essendon this year has been unreal. From where we're stable, we're going through a review. You don't hear anything about the review, and then the review comes back saying that, yep, we're going to keep the coach. Next thing, the president stands down, and we're now searching for a new, or possibly searching for a new coach, at least asking questions. As a player, it's so hard. I've always said, stability on field comes from stability off field. So I know we sit back and look at the performances that the players have been putting up, but that's no worse than the stability has been off field at that football club, which is hard. And I know that everyone in that position is trying to do the best thing for the football club, but there's been so many chops and changes and bumps in the road along the way. It's no wonder probably everyone there is probably looking over their shoulder.
Yes. Do you have a similar experience? I'm just trying to think back to your early years. Did you have that week where Peter Schwab was and wasn't, and the weirdness that goes with an exiting coach?
We had a week where I think Swabby was going to coach out the rest of the year, and then I think he did one game. And so, mate, I was a 20-year-old kid.
Yeah.
I think a 19 or 20-year-old kid then. So at the time, so this is where you sort of look at the younger guys, and they don't know what's going on. They're guys out there just trying to play football. A lot of them are just excited they're playing senior football. Whether you win or lose is not a priority. I know when I was a kid, it wasn't. It was about playing senior football because that's what you wanted to do. It's not until you get older where you understand the pressures of a coach, what goes on, how important off-field stability around the football club impacts the coaches, impacts the players, and the whole football department. But as far as what I'd gone through with Swabby and Hawthorn, I was a young kid, so I didn't sort of take any of it in as much as what I would have if I was an older player.
Yeah. So that very much falls to the leaders then to provide a bit of direction when Saturday night's game comes along. There's one game left in the season. You're coming off just a dreadful performance. You're in this phantom zone as to what on earth the club is doing. Whose responsibility is Saturday night to provide a reason to play and a credible performance worthy of a professional team?
This is where you'd hope the coaches get with the senior group and just sort of say, like, this is back against the wall stuff. And I know funny we're talking about Clarko, but whenever something was going on in the media and they were having a go at us as a group, us as a club, he would use that as motivation. That this is 22 blokes out in the field plus coaches. Let's show them what we're made of, and it's a really us versus you mentality. I think that's what they'll need to get out this last game. There's one more game at the end of the year. Richmond are playing some pretty good footy at the moment, and that would be the motivation. How can we upset this team who we've had a pretty big history against as well? But just to show everyone out there that we are united and we've got a bit of fight left in us.
That was Tom Hawkins last night. He had said that earlier in the year with the suspension. I think we were all thankful that the Zane Cordy case came back as not guilty. It was a bit of a head-scratcher what it was doing at the tribunal in the first place. And sort of what the AFL's end game with that is. Perhaps it was meeting their legal obligations as at least having that tested. Luke, I know you followed this. Luke Hodge, what did you think last night?
Well, I can understand why the match review panel sent it to the tribunal, because they probably would have got overruled no matter what decision they made anyway. But I'm glad that it was talked about and put out there to show that you can still have a physical game and do it cleanly, because I think I'm the same as everyone else, because I thought the bump was dead. I thought it was, if you elect to bump and you get someone in the head, whether you mean to or not, it's your fault and you will be held to account for it. But in certain situations, you still can correctly lay a bump, as we saw on the weekend. And I think how they worked it's if someone sees you coming and they've got clear vision that you're there and it's a fairly shaped bump, we can still accept that in the game. I think where we're going from now and it's making more and more clear, it's when someone's not ready for it, as far as the crouch on Darcy Gardner where he's kicking the ball, wasn't needed to be bumped then. You could have pushed him and had the same impact. You weren't going to smother the ball. I think that's where where starts starting to clear up. The bump still can be done in the game in a correct manner if the person who you're doing it to can see you coming, which clears up a lot for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah, it was a good finding, that's for sure. Okay, the footy that's coming. The Carlton-Essendon game, the Carlton-Collingwood game is going to occupy so much of our attention on the way to Sunday. It's a sellout. We're talking 90,000 plus. Aaron has texted through really eagerly. Hodgie, I'm fascinated by the Pies versus Blues game on Sunday and the psychology of it. Is it as simple as who is more desperate wins? How much are we looking forward to Sunday?
Oh, I've got no idea, to be honest. I'm actually wrapped on. I'll do a Sunday game every now and then, and I'm flying down to do this game, so I cannot wait. But so much is on the line. For the Carlton supporters to get Cripps back with the decision last week, but then to just let... In the last 2 minutes, we've spoken throughout the year on how Carlton have won so many tight games because they do things... how Collingwood have won so many tight games because they do things in a really calm manner. Then we saw Carlton in that situation last weekend, and clearly Melbourne learnt from the weeks prior, where Carlton dropped chest marks in the D50. They panicked. They left spare blokes around. They'll be fighting to make up for that because they need to win to stay in the eight. It's going to be huge. In Collingwood, people start to the big talk about Collingwood is how good a football they've been playing, how exciting it is. But they've had the one loss now. Will that affect them? They've had a few injuries as well. But I can tell you what, 3:20 on Sunday, what a way to finish off the home and away season with two teams that are, one, to get back on the winning circle after having so many in a row, and the other one pretty much need to win to keep their season alive.
So the Carlton psychological side of it, I'm going to ask Jacob Wiedering this. It is like it's the unanswerable until you've got the benefit of hindsight. But how do you work through when you've had such an emotionally wrought result and the sheer devastation that went with the end of that? How do you go about picking yourselves up for the next task, given that it's the same prize that's on offer on Sunday as there was last Saturday night?
This is where players talk about resilience in football and the mindset of you've got to get over a really good win or a really bad loss really quickly. And using the motivation from Carlton and what they had, they've got to use that as motivation to make sure that when they come against Collingwood, and let's be honest, any player for Collingwood or Carlton, whenever they play against each other, you don't need much motivation. The supporters do that for you. Having 95,000 MCG will do that for you. But Carlton have to focus on the areas that they did right, but also learning curve for them of what they did wrong in that last few minutes to cost them the game. So with a minute 12 to go, they're up by, I think it was 7 points or something around that margin. And then for them to let it slip from that. So understand what you did well, understand how you lost the game, and if you're in that situation next time, what you can do better. But more importantly, it's show your heart, come out, throw everything at it, because it's the last game of the year. If you lose this weekend, it's probably going to be the last game of the year for you and your team. So, to be honest, I cannot wait for Sunday to see how both these teams react.
Great stuff. And then Friday night's the starting point. So the Brisbane Lions and Melbourne. For the Lions, this has been their stumbling block in recent times, the Demons. So there's so much to play for here, obviously places in the top four. It feels like it runs a little bit deeper than just that for the Lions as well.
Yeah, I think if you look at the last 2 to 3 times that the Lions have played Melbourne have really shut down their offensive ball movement. Melbourne's defensive stability behind the ball is amazing. And if you don't move the ball with angles and keep the ball in motion, as we've seen Collingwood do a few weeks ago, as we saw Carlton do a little bit last weekend. But the teams that really opened them up was the Fremantle and Sydney early in the year when they beat them after they had their 10 in a row. So if the Lions can sort out their ball movement and not just settle for a long down the line, which Melbourne crave, it will hold them in good stead. But on the flip side is Melbourne's going to get their fair share of inside 50s. It's up to the Lions' defence to be able to limit the scoring fact. And Melbourne's connection inside 450 hasn't been ideal of late, but they get the ball in the 450 that much that they're going to get opportunities to score. So it's going to be a ripping battle. And that's another one. To kick off round 23, there's no better way, I don't think. Do you think the Lions are good enough to win this game on Friday night? This is the tricky one. What I've seen from the Lions the last 3 weeks has probably been, at times, their best football for the year. Yep. Like they've been so convincing in the first half against Richmond. What they did against Carlton in the first half, against St Kilda early, they dominated. But where you need to win these big games of football is the difference between your best and your worst can't be that big of a gap. And what we've seen from their best to the worst the last 3 weeks is a huge gap. And Melbourne are a team that can hurt you. They're powerful. They're explosive through the middle. If they turn the ball over, which they love scoring from turnover once they're set up behind the ball, they will really hurt you if you go through a flat patch, as the Lions have the last 3 weeks. So, look, Lions need to play 4 quarters of football and just not give Melbourne that opportunity to squash their offensive game style.
What a great way to finish the season with so many possibilities still in play. It's going to be enormous, isn't it?
Cannot wait. And then it'll be a boring week off and then into finals. But this round 23 it's going to be a great way to start and finish round 23.
Terrific, Hodge. Look forward to talking to you as it all unfolds.